It's Sunday, November 2nd, 2025, and Germany has just delivered Patriots to Ukraine. We've been talking about it for the last couple of days. It's about to happen. It's about to happen. Well, it just happened. Let me show you this, and then we'll talk about Ukraine's theory of victory and how that has shifted over time. So this is from the Euromaidan Press. Germany delivered additional Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine this weekend. The systems can intercept ballistic and cruise missiles. The ballistic missiles are important. They have a really hard time shooting those down. President Zelensky announced the delivery Sunday, thanking Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Russia has sharply intensified its aerial campaign. That is absolutely true. In fact, if we look at this, Russia fired the most missiles at Ukraine in October since early 2023. They launched 270 missiles at Ukraine just last month, the highest monthly number since the start of 2023. Okay, so they need these systems, and Russia needs to do two things from their perception in order to win. Ukraine needs to do one thing. Well, two things, one and a half things. I'll show you what those are in just a moment. Zelensky said Putin now relies on Air T as his main strategy, using attacks on cities to compensate for failures on the battlefield. Okay, so if you're the Russians, in order to win, since you're invading and trying to take over territory, you need to actually take over territory. That's one thing you need to do. And or you can grind the civilian population down with targeted attacks at night of civilian epicenters and make sure that civilian centers, that make sure that they are going to be so demoralized that they're saying, please, government, just make a deal. Those are the two ways that Russia can win. Ukraine can win either on the battlefield by pushing the Russians out, but it doesn't look like either side's making any real headway on the battlefield. Yes, Pokrovsk is in precarious position, but that's not going to shape the end of the war. Or they can do what they're doing now. And that's what Ben Hodges is talking about when he's talking about things. Well, here, listen to this.
Or refine their theory of victory by going after Russia's oil and gas infrastructure, because it really is, it seems to me, the only way that Russia is able to stay in this war is by selling oil and gas to China and India and some other customers.
And so it's not so the battlefield's important. It really is. But it's not just the battlefield. All the Ukrainians need to do is simply hold the battlefield in place. They don't even need to win on the battlefield. They just need to prevent the Russians from swarming over them while they go after the oil and gas and other power sources in order to prevent the Russians from being able to fund the war and creating an economic crisis in the process. That's what they need to do. That's their theory of victory. Okay. Meanwhile, other things are happening, like in Europe. I feel like I'm in prison. I can't get here or there. Well, this is what people from Belarus into Lithuania are saying as they're stuck on the border. Lithuanian authorities decided to close the border due to violations of the country's airspace by Belarus. Smuggling balloons have been flying dangerously close to Vilnius airport. Vilnius, the capital city, is not that far from the Belarusian border. I've been in both countries. I've been at the Vilnius airport. I've been over the line into Belarus. It's not really that far. And now Lukashenko is saying, essentially admitting maybe they knew about it or they allowed it, or a wink and a nod, something along those lines. Jay in Kyiv wrote, the Belarusian dictator admits that thousands of giant balloons causing airport closures in Baltic nations are part of his operations. He didn't really say thousands. He said maybe there were a few hundred, maybe there were just about a couple dozen. It wasn't that much, but we knew about that. I don't know that it was a government effort, but I think the government was well aware of it and allowed it to be. And crime doesn't seem to happen there without government, government approval. It's that sort of system. It's very clamped down on. So, yeah, they're getting what they're getting. Okay, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov claimed that a meeting with Trump is possible in the near future, but insisted there's no need for it at the moment. Of course, there's no need for it because they're busy saber rattling. Here, Russia has launched a nuclear submarine capable of carrying Poseidon drones. Remember Poseidon drones? They're even bigger and badder than the last missile test that they just went through with this potential nuclear capable missile. And the Poseidon is a nuclear capable underwater drone that could create a tsunami of nuclear kind of proportions and destroy everything. And yeah. Okay. Launch ceremony took place in a shipyard at Severodivsk, please. The Khabarovsk submarine is designed for long-range strategic missions and can operate in the open ocean as part of Russia's nuclear arsenal. And they're making a big thing about this sort of thing. It's just more saber rattling. Now, they talk about nuclear this and that all the time. I want to show you what, and this came from Chuck Farrer. Russia's threats to nuke NATO continue. Should Putin do it, he'd face instant retaliation, not only from the U.S., but its nuclear partners, France and the U.K., who both have capable nuclear triads. This is how a retaliatory strike would look like. The end. Okay, now this is not a good thing. You don't want this to happen. You want this not to happen. But if Russia wants to talk about saber rattling with nuclear weapons, they should understand that this is what it's going to look like in Russia, with all these nukes that would be coming down in a huge way in Russia. Like just get a good sense of where these things are coming from or where they're going to go. And it's going to be just absolutely devastating. If they wanted to do that, they could do it, but it's mutually assured destruction. It's mad. And so there you are. Okay. Now, let's shift gears to something that we haven't talked about before. Donald Trump just posted this. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic T who are committing these horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the T thugs' attack of our cherished Christians, warning the Nigerian government better move fast. Okay. So what is he talking about? If you haven't been paying attention, and I understand if you haven't, because like there's a lot going on in the world. There are Islamic attacks on Christians in Nigeria fairly regularly over the last few years, over the last maybe decade. Okay, Boko Haram particularly. Okay, Johnny Escola wrote this. Trump and his pro-Russian isolationist team will tell you that European Christians in Ukraine are not a U.S. issue worth dying or doing anything about, and that the U.S. is stretched thin, but they will plan wars in Venezuela and Nigeria at the same time. Yeah, that's good commentary that we need to be thinking through. Like, the Christians in Ukraine are suffering at the hands of Russians, and we're not even paying any attention to it. It's like, why aren't we doing that? So that double standard's an interesting thing. But let's look at this with what's been going on in Nigeria. Bernard Henry Levy says, 5 years I've been documenting the massacres of Christians by Boko Haram. And for 5 years, the only response from Nigeria has been to threaten with a lawsuit. The U.S. wakes up. Finally. Thank you. So Nigeria is an interesting place. I had a roommate who was from Nigeria when I was in college and graduate school. He was actually from Abuja. Abuja is right on the border of the Christian and the Islamic kind of, like, it's divided. Like, the darker the green here, the more Islamic, the darker the blue, the more Christian the area. And it's divided like into north, south, east, and west, where there's the, Igbo, Adaman, Yoruba, and I'm trying to remember the tribal name in the north, Hausa in the north. And so it's really broken up by these different tribes and tongue, and then also by Islamic and Christian. And even things like the naira was $1 to 6 naira in 1991 when I started in college. It's now 1 to 1,447. It went from 1 to 6 to 1 to 1447. And that's even while the US was like our currency is inflated. So just, I mean, the naira is jacked up. Okay, but it's not just Nigeria. Like, if you look at what's going on in Sudan, horrific murder is unfolding in Sudan, says Ann Applebaum, where no one can see it. The RSF, the Reaction Strike Force, I think it is, or something like that, are murdering civilians in El Fasher after having finally defeated the Sudanese army forces holding out in the city. So there's a bloodbath there as well. And then it's not just there. And now these others weren't related. Well, everything's related in some way, but in some places, Russian paramilitaries are really behind things, like in the Central African Republic, turning into a hellscape of atrocity since 2018. Philip Obaji, he tracks what Russia is doing in Africa, and it's absolutely horrific to seize all the gold and diamond mines in order to fund Russia's war in Ukraine. And they really are doing that. They're just running roughshod over the people in order to collect the gold and diamonds, and it's just brutal what's going on there. Jay in Kyiv comments, after Russia's successful seizure of almost a dozen resource-rich African nations, it seems the U.S. has finally figured that handing control of the continent to Putin isn't a good idea. And now, it's not so much Putin with Nigeria. I mean, that's not what's going on there, but it is something that you have to pay attention to. Look, I'm a nationalist, not an internationalist, but I realize that we all have to be paying attention to what's going on in the world, right? Like, I don't want global government or anything, but we have to be aware of what's going on and do things where we need to do things. Okay. Before my shout out, or let me give my shout out first to Bill Lehman, undergraduate YouTube member. I also want to give a shout out. Thank you, Bill, for that. And I also want to give a shout out to @user UE2TV5, whatever the number is here. The prof has a natural tendency to trip over his own tongue at the best of times, and even in plain English. True, I talk way too fast, and that's part of being brought up just outside New York City. So can't expect too much when it comes to Eastern European place names. It doesn't bother me as long as he keeps telling me new stuff I didn't get anywhere else. Patton, incidentally, had the same problem with places in southern Germany during World War II, even as he removed them. Keep going, Prof. Well, I mean, glad I'm in good company with that, but thank you for that. Look, I'm doing the best that I can, and people will scold me regularly about, how can you mispronounce this? Well, I never had any training. So I deeply appreciate those of you who have tried to put into the comments, and I read these, put in the comments like how to spell it out, like to make it sound and break it up into certain parts and help me. I appreciate that. Okay, last little thing. I was looking for kind of a metaphor, right? And there's two metaphors I want to show you. One is this. Richard Hania posted this. Chinese woman swam 8 hours in 1976 to leave communism behind. She arrives in America. Her sons go on to attend Cornell and MIT. The kids now support Mamdani. Mamdani is a guy, he's a Democrat running for mayor of New York, and he's about as close to communist as you could possibly be. The guy's like really, really far left. The president struggled, the parents struggle to understand why. Okay, so this Mandami, I think he's probably going to get elected. And it's going to be terrible for New York when we start to see what his policies are. But let's just say, for the sake of the argument here, so what's happening? Why did she swim 8 hours to get away from communism, and the kids are just embracing this? Well, Gary Kasparov, who also got away from communism, is explaining. No personal experience. As with Trump's authoritarianism and the anti-Semitism rising on left and right, and anti-Semitism is rising on the left. I see it there, and I also see it in Nick Fuentes on the right. Marxism and its stalking horse, Democrat socialism, spreads easily among those too young and or too ignorant of their history. The moral clarity of the Cold War is long gone. Man, that statement hit me like a ton of bricks, because this is why, like, I think this is why most of my audience is older than me. I'm 52. Most of my audience is 65 and up. I can see from the YouTube analytics that like most of my audience is collecting Social Security, right? Because we remember the Cold War. And if you don't, well, then you do, well, stupid stuff. Right? Now, there's another metaphor here, and that is this. This guy, you got to do something with what you know. Good man stops a fare evader in New York City, right? So this guy here with the black hat and black backpack, he's going through, he's getting his, he's paying his fare, and the other guy tries to go right through behind him, and fine. Oh, no, nope. You got to do something with what you know, right? Just do it. Spread the information that you have, or talk to other people, or do something. Fund a fundraiser, whatever it is, do something with it. Thank you, my friends, because I know that you're the types of people who are doing things. You're the type of people, thank you for putting the likes and the shares and the subscribes, for correcting my terrible pronunciation of things. But thank you more than anything for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.